and get ready. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Abel Magana. I run Fly North Aviation, which is the home of Redmond and Aurora Flight Training. We recently combined both companies and built a nice big community in the aviation space. So I'm very happy to be here and for the CAA club to be able to offer the building for us to run these weekend seminars. So this is the first time we're doing it in this building, and really excited about it because it's a really cool space right up against the ramp. But for today's talk, I'd like to introduce Reed and JD. They're going to be talking about the fire service and smoke jumping and all of the cool things they do and their story. So please give them a warm welcome. Welcome, Reed.
Well, good morning, everybody. Like Abel said, I'm Reed. I'm here with my friend, JD. We're both agency pilots for the United States Forest Service. First of all, we want to thank you for being here, and we want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about one of our biggest passions, being aviation, and at least for me personally, one of my second biggest passions, being public lands. So what we're going to learn about today is just a little bit of history on the Forest Service in general. It's just one slide before we get into aviation topics, so bear with me on that one. We're going to hop into everything Forest Service aviation related after that, and at the end we're going to give you our stories of what it was like training to become pilots, and then how we came to be agency employees with the Forest Service. So a couple of takeaways I'd love for you guys to have today is, first of all, I hope that we can all have fun together. We brought one of our jump ships with us, so after the presentation we'll all go out there and walk through the airplane. You can ask us more questions about that or about the mission, whatever you'd like. A second takeaway is that I hope you learned something about Forest Service aviation and the Forest Service in general, but I would also like to, I hope you guys also learn about some other more mission-focused flying jobs out there that aren't necessarily 121 or 135 based. Nothing against those guys. I've wanted to be one of those guys for a long time, but I really found my calling in mission service aviation. So without further ado, a little bit of history on the United States Forest Service. It was officially founded on February 1st, 1905 by Theodore Roosevelt, President Theodore Roosevelt, pictured there on the left, when he signed the Transfer Act. The Transfer Act that he signed moved the nation's forest reserves from the General Land Office, now known as the Department of Interior, to the Bureau of Forestry, which we now know as the United States Forest Service. He assigned Gifford Pinchot, pictured on the right, to be the first chief of the agency because they had the same vision. Their vision was twofold for the United States Forest Service when it was first introduced. Number one, prevent catastrophic wildfires in the West and manage them separately from what the Department of Interior in those days were managing their lands with. And number two, being managed for timber extraction. Now, that happened for a long time, and it was extremely productive for a long time. But then in 1960, the Multiple Uses Sustained Yield Act was signed into law. And what that did was the 193 million acres managed by the United States Forest Service at that point was moved from just being managed for wildfire suppression and timber extraction to still those two things, but it had a more general focus on mineral extraction, fish and wildlife habitat, and recreation. So now the Forest Service is mandated to maintain those 193 million acres by all those standards, which is why all of us have access to this nation's national forest, and why we can go out there and go hunting, fishing, hiking, four-wheeling, whatever you can imagine. So a famous quote by Gifford Pinchot is that we must conserve the lands for the greatest good, for the greatest number in the long run. And that has stuck with me for a long time, since before I was a Forest Service employee and more involved with some private sector conservation. But that's still a very big deal for conservationists in this world today, and a lot of people too in the federal government. So the introduction of aviation into the Forest Service first started in 1919. Pictured here is the aircraft that they use. It's a Curtiss J94. It was a World War II surplus, or I'm sorry, World War I surplus biplane, and it was used primarily for smoke spotting, especially in North Washington, where some of the nation's national forests have more sheer cliffs and fire lookouts can't necessarily find all the smoke, or they can't see the smoke that fast depending on the weather. Then they tested this method out for finding smoke, and it was extremely effective, really, really effective. The only ineffective part that happened with this was they didn't have a way to communicate with ground forces on how to go fight those fires or even get coordinates to where those fires were. So a couple of methods that they tried out were, first of all, tying a note to a parachute and dropping it out of the plane and hoping that it lands close to some ground forces so that they can deploy and go fight that fire. That was not effective. The parachutes pretty much just drifted off to God knows where with the wind, and no one ever got those fires in time. So they quickly moved to tying a note to a rock and throwing that out of the airplane. Also ineffective and caused a couple of injuries. A lot of times they couldn't just find the rock, and other times it might have landed on someone. They also tried carrier pigeons, believe it or not. They would throw those out of the airplane, and I'm sure they were just sprouted and flew off into a tree somewhere. So who knows? Anyways, after all of that happened in late 1919 and into the early 1920s, the wireless radio telegraph became modular enough that it could actually be installed in these surplus aircraft. And that really took off with, no pun intended, really took off with the ability to communicate where these smokes were and for the ability of ground forces to go fight those fires. So that happened for a long time. It became extremely effective, extremely fast. And then in 1930, which I don't have a picture of, probably because they didn't want anyone knowing about it, was the first water bombing attempt by the United States Forest Service. The first attempt at aerial suppression of a wildfire. That was 2 10-gallon beer kegs tied to the landing gear of a Ford Tri-Motor. And as you can imagine, even when they hit their mark, it didn't do a whole lot. It was 20 gallons of water. So I wish I had a picture of that, but that doesn't quite exist. And that brings us to Redmond Air Center, where JD and I are based out of. The Redmond Air Center was founded in 1964. The base had just finished construction for the fire season in 1964, and its primary uses back in the day, and very much these days as well, were for air tanker operations, smoke jumping, and smoke spotting, forest health, everything that JD and I do today with our aviation assets. Oh, sorry, I lost my cursor. So a little bit of note about smoke jumping. It first started in Winthrop, Washington in 1939 is when the trials happened. Critics called it a suicide club. And if you saw the kit that they jumped out of planes with, I'm inclined to believe them. It looked very dangerous. But nonetheless, they committed to it. And in 1940, the first successful and operational smoke jumper operation happened out of Winthrop, Washington, out of a Beech 18 pictured right here. This Beech 18 is parked at the original Redmond Air Center, though. So 14 years after the first operational fire jump in 1940, we have 1964, the Redmond Air Tanker Base and Redmond Air Center opens up for business. The initial aircraft used for smoke jumping operations were the Twin Beech on the left and the DC-3 on the right. The Twin Beech was quickly replaced by the DC-3 primarily, and eventually the DC-3 was phased out in the 70s and 80s by Twin Otters. But the DC-3 wasn't done yet. I don't have a photo of it, but they were retrofitted with turboprop engines and put back into service with the Forest Service until pretty recently. A lot of the guys we work with, a lot of the old guys, old jumpers, really miss those airframes, and I wish I could have flown one, but that's all right. Fun fact about these tail numbers, they're actually both still in service with the Forest Service. So we still have 141 Zulu and 148 Zulu as jump ships, just like the one we have outside here. Pictured here is the first air tanker based out of Redmond in 1964. It was purchased by a man with the last name of Butler and retrofitted with a 2,200 gallon fire retardant system in the belly instead of the bombing racks that was originally in this B-17. The The B-17s out of Redmond stayed in service for quite a while, but they were, again, pretty quickly replaced by some more advanced firefighting platforms. And that brings us to today in Redmond. These are the two main platforms that JD and the rest of the agency pilots fly out of Redmond. Pictured here on the left, and just like the one we have outside, is the Shorts Brother C-23 B+ model, better known as the Sherpa. And then on the right, we have a Kodiak 100 pictured there. So the main missions that we use these airplanes for are totally separate. I'm going to start with the Kodiak. So the Kodiak we use primarily for forest health. We'll take up Oregon Department of Forestry or Washington Department of Natural Resources biologists, and we'll go fly long lines over the national forest. We'll look for dead trees, diseased trees, invasive species, anything like that. So we do a lot of forest health missions with them, and those are extremely productive. Aside from that, we do a lot of air attack flights. We're not qualified to be air attack controllers, essentially. What air attack controllers do, they'll be in control of all the air assets over a major fire complex. So we'll take someone with us, put them in the right seat, we'll go fly around in circles, and the air attack in the right seat will be controlling all the air assets, talking to the incident commander on the ground, figuring out where they want any of the water, retardant, stuff like that. And we'll just hang out in orbit and help fight fire from the air. Additionally, we use the Kodiak for administrative flights. So that's kind of how we get our Part 135 charter fix, is we'll take some Forest Service bigwigs and we'll fly them from Redmond Air Center to Winthrop or Boeing Field, somewhere over here in the valley, wherever they need to go. And that's kind of how we get our fix on point-to-point FBO life as agency pilots. So that's a lot of fun too. Additionally, with the Kodiak, we have some cargo missions, not very many. They can't haul a whole lot compared to the Sherpa, but we use the Kodiak for cargo missions as well, anything lighter. And that kind of takes us to the Sherpa. Primarily, what we use the Sherpa for is smoke jumping and some cargo here and there, but we'll use it for dropping jumpers or picking jumpers up after they're done fighting fire. So what that looks like is we show up early in the morning, we get the planes ready. During fire season, we'll go to the 8 a.m. roll call. We'll sit with all the jumpers, make sure everyone has the plan straight for the day. And after that, we are just on call and waiting for the bell to go off. Once the bell does go off and we have a fire that we're dispatched on, the jumpers will start suiting up. We'll hop out to the airplane, pull the plugs and prop ties, and we'll start getting that ready, shut all the doors except the rear one, and wait for the jumpers to load up. Once they're loaded up, we'll start the engines, and we'll be off the ground without delays on taxi. We'll be off the ground in less than 10 minutes from when the bell goes off. At that point, we're en route to the fire. Not a whole lot other than normal cruise operations until we get there. Once we get to the fire, we'll size it up. We'll open the side door so the spotters in the back are able to get a look at the fire. We're looking for places to drop jumpers. That's mostly up to the jumpers. We have a say in it only because we need to also be able to get cargo in there. They'll have a lot of confidence in being able to parachute into a spot, but that doesn't necessarily mean we'll be able to get cargo in there. So we'll make that decision together. Once we have the spot picked out, we'll climb up to 1,500 feet AGL, and we'll drop streamers. The streamers are just a long 6-foot piece of paper with a small weight on the end, and they're supposed to take 60 seconds from 1,500 feet to hit the ground. So we'll time them, and then we'll get the wind correction angle from the streamers, dropping them directly over where we want to jump. And then once we have that distance away from the jump spot that they land, then we have our wind line. We know what the surface winds are doing. We'll come back, do a check set on that wind line. Once everyone's good there, we'll climb up to 3,000 feet, and then we'll start dropping jumpers. The minimum stick or amount of jumpers we drop at a time is 2. That way, everyone's always on a buddy system. If the spot's big enough, we can do up to 4 or 6 jumpers. It really just depends. But that's all happening at 3,000 feet. So if anyone here has skydived before, 3,000 feet is pretty darn low. And it's not a static line. The only static line system that we have is for their drogue chutes, since they're not very aerodynamic, leaving the plane. but they pull their main canopy, they fly themselves to the ground in a normal traffic pattern for a parachute. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I just know what it looks like for an airplane, but they'll land. And then once they're on the ground and safe, then we will reconfigure, we will shut the side door, we will open a ramp door in the rear of the aircraft, and we will set up for a cargo run. We'll drop them fireboxes, which contain 2 sleeping bags, 2 Pulaskis, and enough food to sustain 2 firefighters for 72 hours. So each pair of jumpers will get a firebox, and depending on the situation, we might also drop them a box with a chainsaw in it. So we make that cargo drop at 200 feet AGL, and if anyone was watching the video when everyone was sitting down, it gets a little squirrely sometimes, looks a little low, and that's because there is a little bit of a pucker factor there. You have to make sure you really plan that one out, because it can get a little spicy. And then the third thing we do out of Redmond, which unfortunately isn't an agency job anymore, is tanker operations. So the only agency pilot operation that we have for tanker stuff is flying the King Air 200 right here in the lead plane operations. So they're the ones in front of the air tankers, dropping the smoke line and telling the tankers where to drop the retardant. So they're essentially doing the job of the air attack that I was talking about in the Kodiak, just on their own in the King Air and leading the tankers in. So that, unfortunately, is the only agency job in the air tanker world. But everything else pictured here is all agency contracted. So we have an MD-87 in the top right. We have a single engine air tanker or a seat in the bottom left, which is essentially just an air tractor, which can either be equipped with amphibs to scoop water from bigger bodies of water, or it can just be on typical tricycle landing gear for dropping retardant. We have a CL415 Super Scooper here in the middle on the bottom. Same principle as the seat there, just with bigger water, needs a little bit longer of a runway. And then I'm sure everyone's seen videos of this, but a DC-10 or Tanker 10, as everyone calls it. So not necessarily agency flying, but still a big part of mission flying and Forest Service aviation would be the history of air tankers. So with that, I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of history on me. This is kind of a full circle moment because I started primary flight training over at Aurora Flight Training in March of 2018. I got my private pilot's license there and then went to ATP up in Hillsboro, where I did instrument, single engine commercial, multi-engine commercial, and that was in the midst of COVID, where they were trying to do CFI training online. So I took the deferment, whatever money I had left, went down to Texas, got my CFI cert down there, came back to Aurora Flight Training and begged for a flight instructor job, which I got. I did that for a year, and then at a pretty low time in my logbook, I was offered a position with a smaller defense contracting company called Maitreya Special Aerospace. And I was hired there with just over 800 hours and only 10 hours of multi-engine time to be a King Air 350 pilot in Africa. And I would deploy for 2 months at a time. So it was 2 months on, 2 months off. And that gave me a lot of really good international experience, but turbine experience. I quickly upgraded to captain in the King Air 350, which was kind of crazy at the time looking back, but it was a lot of fun, and I got a lot of turbine PIC time at that job. I did that for just over 2.5 years, and then I updated my resume, found that the Forest Service was hiring agency pilots, submitted my application, went in for a base tour there at RAC, and got an interview, and was hired in July of last year. So I have not been with the agency that long, but it's been a great career so far, and I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon. And that's the history of me, pretty straightforward. So with that, I'm gonna hand the mic over to JD here. He's got a little bit more experience on his resume than I do, and he's hopped around a little bit more, which isn't a bad thing. But I think between the two of us, when we get to the question section of this, we'll be able to answer a lot of your guys' questions about how to get where you want to be, and also, of course, what it's like flying for the Forest Service, and if mission-focused flying is something that you want to do. So please give a round of applause for JD here, and after him, we'll get some questions from him.
Thank you, Reed. Man, look at that thing. It's gorgeous. I don't know why we couldn't get the A+ model. We got the B model. It's good. My name is JD Dennis. I'm a smokejumper pilot here in Redmond, along with Reed. I'm going to give you kind of my history of how I came to be an agency pilot. Kind of a zigzagging pattern, if you will, but they don't bore you too much. I'm also a product of the ATP Flight School out of Everett, Washington. Went to school there for about a year and a half, got all my ratings, and was lucky enough to get offered a job in Alaska for my first ever flight job, flying in the right seat of the Cessna Caravan. And at the time I was like, man, I can't believe these guys are paying me. Why this thing is unreal. And I remember you'd have to jump seat on an airline to get up there. So you'd pack all your stuff, all your food in an ice chest, and make your way up there. And I remember I was flying, sitting in the jump seat of a 737 and talking to the captain. He's like, how you liking it? It's your first job. And I go, oh man, I love it. I do it for free. He's like, don't you ever tell them that. So it was cool. I got to cut my teeth up there, learn a lot, gain some cool experience. And so yeah, started in the right seat of a Caravan and eventually switched over to the left seat in a Cessna 207. Just flying cargo and water and other food, little local villages. And so, yeah, I got some really cool experience. I spent just over a year up there. I think my last time there was like -20 or 30 something, getting out of the airplane. I was like, I'm never coming back here. And so, yeah, I was lucky. The company that my wife had been working for was looking for a corporate pilot. So we moved out of Grants Pass, Oregon, where I started working for a coffee company doing corporate stuff, just in Cessna Conquests and Citation CJ4s. And yeah, just did the corporate life for just over 4 years. I kind of went back and forth with them, which was great, awesome experience, and got to stabilize my home life a little bit, had a kid, and yeah, just was living the dream. And then kind of decided to ruin a little bit. I was like, you know what, I gotta swap this up. Everything's going too good. And decided I kind of want to work cargo. I always dreamed of working for FedEx. So there was a small company in Portland called Empire Airlines, and they were a contractor for FedEx, just flying Cessna Caravans like I had in Alaska. And they had this like pathway program to get up to FedEx, and I was like so gung-ho on doing that. And so I convinced my wife and my kid, 1 year old at the time, like, let's move, it's gonna be great. And moved him into this tiny apartment. And I knew immediately, week one, I was like, oh man, I screwed this up big time. So kind of had to make a pivot there. And I had some time from working the corporate world that I got a job over here at Aurora up in Hillsboro doing medevac stuff for the Organ Transplant Charter Services Program. So transplanting lungs, hearts, livers, other bodily organs you can think of all across the nation, which was a pretty cool experience, and got a lot of crazy stories on that one, and night flying, and yeah, it was a good time. But we flew Citation Mustangs, CJ3s, Citation 4s, just kind of the whole gambit there. After that, we had another child, and decided it was time to move back home, originally from Central Oregon, and moved back home to Bend. And my last job that I've been working for, the coffee company, was hiring again. So I was like, yeah, I can't call them back to them. And worked for them for just over 2 years again down in Grants Pass, just commuting back and forth from Bend. At which time they sadly decided to shut down the flight department. So had to make another pivot there. Went crawling back to my medevac job, Aurora up in Hillsboro, just zigzagging back and forth. And at that point, I actually got a job with Hawaiian Airlines, which I was pretty excited about. And this was right about the time that Hawaiian and Alaska Airlines were merging, so just 2 years ago. And I had a job offer for about a year. That's how long it lasted. And so my year came up, and they extended it another 6 months or so. And then was just like, you know what, I'm so tired. I just want to be home, working a job at home, be home with my kids, have a stabilized family life. And I saw this job posting of Forest Service was hiring in Redmond, Oregon. I was like, no way. So I went down, did a base tour, and was just sold on it immediately. Like, couldn't believe this kind of flying existed in my hometown. And applied, got the job, said bye to Hawaiian, and yeah, just so blessed to be here and working my dream job in my hometown. It's been great. Yeah, we do some pretty cool flying. The smoke jumping mission can be very dangerous. So, you know, it's been a huge learning curve, and I'm thankful that the U.S. Forest Service agency puts in a lot of work to their pilots, and, you know, gives us the training opportunities to be safe in the air while we're flying these smoke jumpers. So pretty awesome, and yeah, excited for you guys to see the airplane and kind of see what we do. It's too bad we couldn't do a practice jump for you guys here, though. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to come up and ask. I'm sure missing something. And yeah, thanks to Reed for putting this on. And yeah, thank you guys, appreciate it.
All right, yeah, we'll go ahead and field questions now. So go ahead and just raise your hand and we'll start it off. Yes, sir.
So what type of severe fire-generated weather, I'm not sure quite the right term, but when you have these massive forest fires, it creates its own weather within that.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what kind you've experienced or what it's like or what that entails flying in and around that type of generated weather?
Yeah, sure thing. So if anyone couldn't hear the question, on some major fire complexes, fires can create their own weather systems. And the question was what it's like flying around those, and in our experience, it's been like for us. Admittedly, we won't fly too close to big fires that are creating their own weather systems. But what you can expect are essentially the beginning stages of thunderstorms. A lot of air rushing in from the ground, a lot of those updrafts in the center of the system and that sort of thing. And it'll just punch right through the atmosphere and keep going and anvil out and turn essentially into a thunderstorm situation. So if it gets that bad, then typically we'll start to step off on those air attack missions. And that's not something we would ever take the Sherpa into or do smoke jumping operations for. The smoke jumping operations are initial attack almost exclusively. So we'll go to those single tree lightning strike fires more than anything out in the national forest or in the wilderness areas with that. So that means we're going to take the smaller airplane, the Kodiak, to go fly air attack missions on some of those major fire complexes. And yeah, if it starts to go nuclear like that, then we're going to start to back away from it. But it gets pretty turbulent pretty fast.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Anybody else?
How many average flights do you do in the summertime?
Well, we do a lot of flights.
Sorry, for the early detection fires, how many? Hundreds or?
So smoke spotting is, for anyone that couldn't hear the question, how many flights do we do in the summer? Smoke spotting, I'm going to expand a little bit into jump operations and stuff like that as well. But smoke spotting, like the initial flights in 1919, those are also Forest Service contracted now. Maybe if we're on the way back from a fire, or if we have an air attack on board, then dispatch might call us and ask to check out a local area. But smoke spotting isn't necessarily something that's in our daily duties. But I would say almost every day in the summertime, we're doing some sort of flight. Last summer, I flew 15 fire flights, but I think I ended up staffing almost 30 fires because these big systems will come rolling in, especially over the crest. It'll drop a lot of lightning through the Cascades, and we have 10 jumpers on board, which is a standard load. And a lot of those are just little single tree fires. So one fire flight, we could staff 5 different wildfires and throw 2 jumpers on each and that sort of thing. There are times in the summer where just nothing's happening. We're just not getting the lightning. So it's a lot of Kodiak flying. It's a lot of forest health or admin or air attack on some of the bigger fire complexes. And at that point, we're just kind of in hurry up and wait mode and just waiting for the bell to go off. But when the fires do start to go off, then it's almost every day, sometimes all day, every day until we run out of jumpers.
How many people are on your crew?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
How many people are on your crew usually?
Specifically on the airplane or in the office? What do you mean exactly?
Yeah, well, just like in the airplane, like the total crew that it takes to go out there.
Gotcha. For people that couldn't hear, the crew that it takes to run a jump ship, it's 2 pilots. It's a transport category aircraft, so it requires 2 pilots. And in the back, we have 2 spotters or load masters, whatever you want to call them. They're in charge of the jumpers. And then a standard load would be 10 jumpers. So it would be 14 of us on board for a full load. And good opportunity for me to mention too, we are not the main characters of the jump ship at all. Like, this is the jumpers operation. It's their mission. We're lucky just to be a part of it and support them. We're just moving them from point A to point B and doing it as safe as possible. And we're really lucky that we get to be a part of their mission. Thanks for the question. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about this Sherpa, unless you're gonna do it out there? I'm curious about its load and how much, where you be when it's loaded and whatnot.
Yeah, I can give you the bullet points. I'm definitely planning on talking a little bit more about it out there. But it's got 2 Pratt & Whitney PT6-65 engines. So each engine on a normal day can produce about 3,600 to 3,700 foot-pounds of torque. We consume about 1,000 pounds of fuel per hour, and the airplane does not like altitude. So down here at 200 feet, we perform really, really well on the ground. We can hop off the ground really fast. But in Redmond, on a 95-degree day, we're probably chewing up. Funny enough, our performance charts don't actually give us our takeoff roll. We just plug in airport information, how much we weigh, and then it says yes or no. So I'm only guessing at takeoff roll, but I would say on a hot summer day with the full load, we're chewing up about 45 to 5,000 foot of runway.
Smallest runway you probably want to take off on about 3,000.
Yeah. Yeah. They get pretty short pretty quick on hot days, especially out of Redmond.
How about the cargo that you can carry?
6,000 pounds is generally what we'll carry on standard load. The book says 71, I think, or 72, but you can't touch that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in Ireland, and you might have been drinking a little bit inside the airplane.
Yeah. Yeah, up front.
When that bell does go off, how soon do you want to be in the air with a full crew?
The expectation is that we are in the air less than 10 minutes after the bell goes off. So for us, our office is just up a set of stairs from the airplane, which sometimes feels kind of far away, actually. So a lot of the time we're hanging out on the ramp or in the jump base with the jumpers, waiting for that call. But yeah, the expectation is 10 minutes to be in the ramp. In the middle there.
What's your overall territory? Did you get pulled away for mutual assistance, maybe with Cal Fire or somewhere else?
Great question. The question was about our region, the area that we cover. JD and I work for Region 6, which is based out of Redmond. That's our hub. And Region 6 covers Oregon and Washington. So we can be in the Sherpa with a full load of jumpers out of Redmond and to any corner of Oregon within an hour to drop jumpers on a fire. And then the original base in Winthrop, Washington still exists. And that they cover the majority of Washington, I would say. It's a little bit of a smaller base, and they use a contract jump ship up there. But if they run out of jumpers, then we'll go staff up there. Some of the pictures that was in that video when everyone was sitting down were in the North Cascades, and we staffed some fires up there last summer out of Redmond. Yeah.
Do you guys fly at night too, or just for the day?
In fire season, pretty much exclusively during the day. Yeah. We're limited to sunset to sunrise. Or I'm sorry, sunrise to sunset, essentially, for fire operations. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So with fire seasons, do you get a upcoming forecast of what you think the season, what they think the season's going to look like, whether it's going to be a relatively mild fire season or if it's going to be a really extreme fire season, and then do you try to adjust staffing, et cetera, for that?
In a way, I would say our job with the jumpers is, like I said, almost strictly based on initial attack. So if we don't have the starts, if we don't have the lightning or the man-caused fires in the wilderness area or something like that, then we usually won't end up flying. But We are staffing, I would say, this is the earliest I've heard of the base starting 7-day coverage, which is going to be May 31st this year. Typically, we're doing that in later June or early July. And I think a lot of that is because of the really poor snowpack and dry winter that we've had. And so those decisions are all made way above our
Sure.
level. But
The reason I ask is just because it's predicted to be a very hot, dry summer. And
Yes.
like you said, with the winter we had, it doesn't seem like it's a good formula for a mild fire season.
yeah, from what I've heard from the Washington office and everyone above my position with the agency is that if the starts do happen, they have extreme potential to get really big, really fast. And we just got a letter from the chief of the Forest Service, in email form, of course, these days. But we are going full suppression this summer as fast as we possibly can for any start. And I think that's for the exact reasons you just mentioned. Yes, ma'am.
So how many jumpers do you have on staff then? I mean, can you staff up quickly?
Currently, we have just over 40 jumpers in Redmond. This year, we have a class of rookies. We started with 11, and we're down to 8 right now. So if those 8 stick around and make it through the full gambit of training, then we're looking at just under 50 jumpers this year. And I'm sorry, was there a second?
No,
part
no,
to your
that was
question?
it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
How big is the Forest Service fleet of aircraft, and then what do you guys get paid, or how are you paid?
Great question. So for jump ships specifically, our fleet is only 9. We have 9 jump ships that are agency controlled and owned, and they're all Sherpas, just like this one out here. Typically, 8 of those are airworthy at any given time, and those 8 are split between Redmond, Reading, and Missoula. Right? I'm not missing one on there.
We get otters and call it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then Twin Otters in the call. Thanks. But yeah, not a whole lot of agency-owned aircraft. The rest of the bases that have smoke jumpers are all contracted. So a lot of those are CASAs, Dorniers, Dash 8s, and platforms like that. And then we are paid on a modified GS scale, which I don't know what that stands for.
Government
General
serve.
schedule.
General schedule, thank you. But it's adjusted for special positions like pilots within the agency.
So what do you get paid?
I'm not gonna answer that.
Good
But-
answer, good answer.
But you can look up the general schedule pay scale online, and our lowest paid pilot job is adjusted, the special pay table for the GS level at GS9. Yes, sir.
Are you the only 2 based at Redmond, or do you have backup pilots and airplanes there on?
We have 7 pilots right now.
7, 1 on the way.
Yeah, 1 more starting June 1.
1 on the way.
Yeah, 1 on the way. 7 right now, 1 on the way. And typically in Redmond, we have 2 Sherpas there all summer long. We're also the maintenance hub for the Sherpa program. So we'll have some more in the hangar getting worked on, but typically we're able to staff 2 jump ships all summer long, without any extreme circumstances.
And you 2 fly together all the time? Are you the
Yeah.
team?
We fly together a lot.
We're the A-team.
Yeah, you're looking at it.
I like to think so.
Yeah. I saw a question way in the back there.
What should some logbook look like if they want to get hired?
Great question. The minimums for the GS9 level that I was talking about earlier are 1,200 hours total time and 100 hours multi-engine PIC. Now, I will say that at that GS9 level, that's the floor. And to get anything above a GS9 or get that captain, because you need to be a GS11 or 12 to become a captain in the program, that's 1,500 hours and 500 hours of multi-engine PIC time. So if that's honestly what restricts a lot of people from applying for this position, are those multi-engine hours. Back right.
I was wondering, because you said a lot of the tanker operations, you guys outsource it. So how big does a fire officially get before you start outsourcing tanker operations?
Good question.
Good question. I couldn't even begin to answer that. If it's bigger, then an acre or two, I would say it's gonna take 1 or 2 full loads of jumpers in a national forest to extinguish that fire, and that's with good circumstances. But aside from that, I do not know what qualifications need to be met in order to get tanker operations on that fire. I know that it's really good PR to have tankers operating on fires, but they're also extremely expensive to operate every day. So the people in charge of those decisions are trying to find that balance between, is this something ground crews can handle, or is this something we need to put tankers on to prevent it from, going nuclear and destroying a whole bunch of land and that sort of thing. Just next to him, yes.
So it sounds like a seasonal job. What do you do like on the non-fire season? What is that look like?
Yeah, very good question. So it's not strictly seasonal. We are employed year round, but in the wintertime, we do run what's called a maxi flex schedule with the agency, which is for a 2-week pay period. As long as you get your 80 hours, it doesn't matter when you get them. Now, we're still working in the office for those 80 hours. We can't, work from home for those. So it's not like we can just take off for 2 months and work on Starlink in Hawaii or whatever it is. But yeah, maybe someday. But in the summertime, we're both working 11 days on, 3 days off. The other option is 12 days on, 2 days off. And you're doing that all summer until fire season ends. And then you're just kind of working that maxi flex schedule and working on the projects that you've been putting off all summer long. So I would say the wintertime is when we do a lot of our training, proficiency flying. We get back into the instrument world since we're only doing VFR flying in the summertime for fires. We're trying to rebuild checklists. Yeah, a lot of admin flights, a lot of admin in the office, and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Blue vest.
It'll be my last one, I promise.
It's all right.
Are there volunteer opportunities for GA pilots to help support your missions or help support the Forest Service? Or is it strictly you've got to get your hours and qualify?
Yeah, great question. If anyone couldn't hear it in the back, it's if there are any general aviation opportunities with the agency. Short answer is no. There are a lot of contractors out there that will take more low-time pilots that are looking to build some hours, and some of those low-time jobs mostly are smoke spotting and that sort of thing. They'll go run lines just like we do for Forest Health, but they'll just be looking for fresh starts. Aside from that, the DOI, the Department of Interior, they still have a pilot development program, and the Forest Service is currently trying to adopt that same exact program. So we can take pilots from, inside the Forest Service that might be GA pilots and train them up to be smoke jumping pilots or air attack pilots, whatever that might be. But that opportunity should also exist at some point in the future for civilians.
Thank you.
Middle?
I had a second two-part question.
Okay.
I don't know if you said this in the beginning, but you guys have your own base in Redmond? Or are you based out of the?
Yeah, we're based out of Redmond Airport.
Okay.
Yeah, our base is there on the field.
And then my other question was, you're saying you did some stuff on like Forest Health and stuff like that. So what other? I'm just curious about what you guys do aside from the smoke jumping and fire stuff for like Forest Health.
Yeah, great question. The missions aside from smoke jumping would be Forest Health taking up biologists, and they're doing stuff that's outside of my wheelhouse, but they'll have a map with them on some sort of tablet, and they'll be marking beetle-killed trees or invasive species, that sort of thing for Forest Health. And that's just a lot of really long lines. I'm sure you guys have seen them on FlightAware, just up and down, up and down, up and down. The air attack missions are another job for the Kodiak. And that's over the big fire complexes, controlling all the aircraft in the area for that fire. And then lately, we've been doing a lot of administrative flying. We'll be taking Forest Service bigwigs to meetings and inspections and other forests and that sort of thing. But aside from that, it's mostly just proficiency, continued education for us. We do a lot of training there in Redmond, but we also have the opportunity to go get training elsewhere. Blue sweatshirt.
Is maintenance also done by GS employees? And then how do the smoke jumpers get extracted? Or how do you actually bring them? Let's say you're up in Northeast Oregon. Will you land at an airport there and bring them back home as well? Or how does that work?
Yes, maintenance. We do have agency maintenance positions. We have more contract positions with air cargo carriers than we do agency maintenance positions, but they do exist. And they are on the same pay scale. And then for backhaul or getting jumpers out, typically they're hoofing it. They'll jump out of their plane with their jumpsuit and their parachute and all their firefighting equipment, and then all the cargo that we drop them. And they'll pack all that up when the fire's put out, and they'll hike out of there. And they'll get themselves to a trailhead, and they'll meet some sort of Forest Service employee with a truck, and they'll load them up in that truck and either drive them all the way back to Redmond, but from Northeast Oregon, they would probably relocate to LeGrand or a similar airport, and then we would take a Sherpa and go pick them up and bring them back to base. Abel.
A couple questions. How often do they not contain that on the jump? Is it like, you guys got like a 90% success rate for jumpers, and they're good, and then if they don't kill that fire, are they hightailing it out to like a dedicated point?
Yeah, they'll have those plans in place, safety zones in place if they feel like they need them right when they jump. I jumped one fire last year where it was already torching in the treetops and it was already getting pretty out of hand. And their stipulation before they jumped was that they had a committed air asset or a helicopter with a bucket to help them out and help them fight that fire. In other cases, I would say when we don't need that and that fire isn't torching already, then they're extremely effective. I don't know the exact percentage, but they squash almost all the fires they go out on. And then what was the other part of your question?
Prescribed burns, do you guys support, like, are you guys waiting for that bell to go out, or are you already in the air for that kind of mission?
Typically, we are not needed for prescribed burns. Now, the last, a couple of the last two in Central Oregon got a little out of hand, and the controlling agency there, the incident commander in charge of that, didn't admit it right away, but he started ordering air assets, and we're like, okay, this is something now. So we did staff air attack missions for those fires, but we're still just sitting on the ground waiting for orders if they need us. Yes, sir.
So let's say you guys are in your office, bell rings, right? What does it look like for you guys for those next 10 minutes? What do you guys actually do? Sure.
Great question. We'll run up to operations from wherever we're at. We'll get our dispatch sheet, or a tarot is what it's called. That gives us a lat long, if there's any other air assets in the area, what the air to ground frequencies are. It gives us all the information we need to know about that fire, if they have any information. It could just be a really fresh fire and all we have is a lat long, and that's it. So we'll get that, and we'll run down to the airplane. We'll take the plugs out. We'll take the prop ties off. We'll shut the doors, except for where the jumpers load up. Because the airplane, we already did the pre-flight in the morning, so it just sits there on the ramp waiting to go. So we'll get our flight suits on, we'll hop up into the front seats and wait for the jumpers. Once the jumpers hop on, we'll start up the engines and get out of there as fast as we can. So it's really just getting the dispatch orders and running the airplane and getting your suit on and hopping up front.
Are you running or jogging?
Depends where I am. How far away? Yes, sir.
For someone like myself who'd like to apply for the Forest Service, besides just having your 500 a multi-time, do you think that using that cadet program with the Department of Interior would be helpful with giving yourself a leg up and getting a job maybe in the future with the Forest Service?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of build on that, I would say whatever you need to do to get those multi-engine hours. The multi-engine hours are, I saw just a few resumes from the last time we were hiring, and a lot of people are just way short on the multi-engine hours, unfortunately. Also, to build on that, I would say that something that helped me with my last job as a defense contractor was studying for the job that I wanted. I wasn't just knowledgeable, because at the time I was flying little Pipers and Cessnas at Aurora Flight Training. And I was still doing studying on turboprop operations, some of the numbers, the different performance numbers that come into play there, how turbine works, everything like that. So I already knew at least a little bit that I could speak of when I got that interview. So I guess all that to say would be study for the job that you want and become knowledgeable in that field. But yes, the DOI, we have an employee that came through the DOI program. He works for us now, and it worked out great for him.
I think you might need prior fire experience to enter that. I'm not sure. I might double check.
that's true or not.
Yeah, you might need prior experience, prior fire experience to enter that. And I've heard that might be changing, but I don't know exactly. Yes, Mom.
For the rookie jumpers, how many practice jumps do they have to do before they're signed up to do? Because that keeps shifting through this time of year.
Yeah.
How many practice jumps do they have to successfully complete?
Yeah, for anyone in the back that couldn't hear it, for the rookies that we have this year, how many jumps do the rookies need to have before they're signed off and ready to go on fires? And they need 25 practice jumps before they're able to go and be operational. So yeah, that keeps us pretty busy. Typically, every day of the week, we're doing 2 rookie jumps a day right now. So a lot of parachute packing. Yes, sir.
Do you guys have a specific territory or do you get farmed off anywhere in the United States or North America, like Canadian fires threatening United States?
Yeah, so the question was if we get dispatched anywhere else aside from just Region 6 around the United States or in North America. We have gone up to Canada before to help out with Canadian smoke jumpers. I think that happened 3 years ago. And almost every year we go up to Alaska and help out the Alaska smoke jumpers as well. And they love the Sherpa up there because you can load it to the gills with stuff from the cache to go fight fires in remote areas. And then we can also drop jumpers out of the airplane as well. So it's a pretty versatile unit up there.
And one other question, what's the weight of the gear that some smoke jumpers carry?
I would say it varies a little bit, obviously depending on the smoke jumper's size. I don't know the exact gear weight, but most of the jumpers leaving the door of the aircraft weigh somewhere between 270 and 300 pounds.
Depends if they got frozen steaks or not.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
For both of you, what is the best part and the worst part of your job?
Oh, great question. I'll have to think on the worst part. But the best part for me would, and I guess this would apply to any aviation job, but especially working for the agency, would be being able to get paid to do what I'm passionate about on multiple levels. Not just aviation, but being, I call it a professional steward of the 193 million acres that the agency controls. That's like a dream come true for me. The worst part, I'm not gonna say what I get paid. But you can make better money elsewhere. Yeah, and we're also in our own bed almost every night as pilots, which is almost unheard of. So that's a really good part too. Yes, sir.
How do you guys calculate weight and balance, and how critical is it on that Sherpa?
I would say it's pretty darn critical. It can do a lot, but with the operations we do, it's really easy to get it forward or aft of the envelope. And we calculate weight and balance with a number sheet. It's a really high-tech spreadsheet that's way above my head. But it has all the stations, all the different kinds of configurations that we have in there. So we're just checking boxes, adding numbers, and verifying empty weights and stations and stuff like that. It's actually super easy compared to the performance numbers. Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys have your favorite planes as pilots?
Yes.
Your favorite 2 planes you have? Are they the same?
This one.
Yeah, absolutely the Sherpa. It's super quirky. Flying transport category is super fun because you've got someone else up front with you. The mission's super fun, but it's, I would say, the weirdest airplane I've ever flown. But I find that as a good thing. Anybody else?
The split tail's kind of distinctive. I was noticing what the aerodynamic benefits of it.
Benefits?
Authority you have on it.
Yeah, you have a lot of authority with the 2 rudders on there and 2 vertical stabilizers. It's a lot of work keeping it in trim, I would say, but yeah, I would say you have a lot of authority, and obviously gives us access to have the ramp door in the back, which we'll see in a little bit here. But yeah, it's pretty good. I saw one more in the back.
What's the license that you have? Does one up like commercial, ATP?
Yeah, I'm just a multi-engine commercial pilot, and you just get a type rating for the aircraft. That's all it is.
What was your best and worst part of the job? You did
My
most of it.
best? Oh gosh, I think the best part really in Redmond is the culture. Like the people I work with they're so awesome. The flying we get to do is unreal. I'm home every night, be with my kids. That's huge to me. So that's all the best part. The worst part, honestly, slim to none. I'd say if I had to complain about something is, you worked all summer, 12 days on, 2 days off, you're tired, you get to the winter, yeah, you have some small projects, but there's some days in the office where you're like, man, I just really want to be home. I don't have anything to do really, So I'd say sometimes the schedule in the winter, if I had to say something. But other than that-
Vacation time.
What's that?
Or vacation time.
Yeah, what the heck? I gotta get my PTO up.
Yes, sir.
So I know, so you said you do like a lot of transporting, for admin and stuff like that. But if you had to spit out a percentage, what percentage of you guys actually flying at low level? So like sub 500 feet. How much of that flying do you guys actually do?
Actual low level, especially mountainous flying, which is almost exclusively what we do, low level. Lately for me, it's been over 50%. Mostly because smokejumper operations are kicking up, forest health is kicking up, and the only thing up at altitude that we do is air attack or point-to-point flying. Almost every other time we're flying low level through the mountains. Great question. Anybody else? Okay, well then with that, I just have a couple more things to say. First of all, a big thank you to everyone that came in support of the agency, just learning a little bit more. Like I said, it's a really special moment for me to come back as a prior student and instructor here at this airport. And thank you to Abel for the invite. And a couple notes about when we go out to the airplane. The vertical stabilizers, the props, and the struts, they can all bang your head if you're not careful, so please keep your eyes up and make sure you don't run into the airplane because it will cut you. And aside from that, we're going to have both the side doors open and we'll have stairs on both of them. I think the general flow that we should go with is going through the front, checking out the flight deck, and then moving to the right and coming out after the airplane. And that's just going to keep it best for everybody. But please keep the questions coming when we're out there. I'm happy to answer anything, so is JD. And with that, I think it's it. So thank you guys so much again, and we'll see you out there.
Again, guys, we're going to be going out to the stripper here, but if you are interested, we are going to be serving pie and ice cream right out the window. So you get to choose if you want to go through there, check out the airplane, and then get some snacks and some coffee and whatnot. But again, one more round of applause for these guys. These guys are awesome. And thank you all for hanging out with us.
Yeah, you did.